Technology is shaping the world faster than ever before. Every day, new innovations are changing how we work, think, and live. At ByteShift, we break down these transformations from AI and automation to the future of work and digital transformation. We bring you clear, insightful, and thought-provoking content that keeps you ahead of the curve. Welcome to ByteShift.
They don't run for office. They don't appear on magazine covers. They don't command armies or lead protests. And yet, they might just be the most powerful people in the world. From the fall of empires to the rise of billionaires, from silent wars in the Middle East to trillion-dollar AI deals in Silicon Valley, there's one common thread no one talks about. Consultants. Who are these corporate whisperers? Why do governments turn to them in crisis? And why are some of the most explosive global decisions made off the record in PowerPoint decks that never see the light of day? Behind every scandal, every global pivot, every economic overhaul, there they are. This is the story of the elite circle that shaped your paycheck, your politics, and possibly even your future. A story of secrets, influence, and unimaginable control. A story you were never meant to hear. This is the corporate whisperers, inside the elite circle that shapes global fortune. The story begins almost a century ago in 1926 when an unassuming professor, James McKinsey, quietly launched a firm that would one day steer the destinies of nations. On the surface, it was about efficiency and scientific management. But even then, the goal was clear: gain access to the decision-makers, whisper just loud enough, and steer the ship. It wasn't long before McKinsey & Company became the firm behind the throne. During the Great Depression, when corporations were crumbling, the consultants arrived not as saviors, but as strategic reshapers. Their solution? Cut costs. Fire thousands. Sell off divisions. They weren't just helping companies survive, they were redefining capitalism, one boardroom at a time. After World War II, something even more curious happened. As the ashes of Europe cooled and the Cold War began to brew, the consultants went global. They began advising not just corporations, but governments. Entire post-war economies were rebuilt with their input. Coincidence? Or something more orchestrated? The lines began to blur. Were they consultants or kingmakers? Fast forward to modern times and you'll find the same firms embroiled in some of the most controversial global flashpoints. The very same people advising the White House are also advising foreign governments. The same consultants building climate change agendas are also working with fossil fuel giants. How can one whisper in so many ears and still claim neutrality? There's more. These firms, McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and their silent cousins are now working hand in hand with AI companies, shaping how automation replaces jobs, how surveillance tools get deployed, and how digital currencies roll out. Not just predicting the future, but designing it. They exist in the shadows, operating like a modern priesthood of data, influence, and power. A network so elite, so well-connected, that presidents take their calls and CEOs tremble at their reports. In this series, we'll pull back the velvet curtain. Who are these people? How did they come to control global policies, economic models, even wars and revolutions? And the ultimate question, who do they really serve? Crises don't just happen. They're designed, accelerated, or quietly enabled by forces most people never see. Take a step back from the headlines. Behind every major disaster, economic crashes, public health emergencies, political upheavals, there's often a quiet room. Inside that room, consultants. They don't campaign for office. They don't sign the bills. But their fingerprints are all over the playbook. Let's talk about the opioid epidemic. Purdue Pharma made the drug. But it was McKinsey & Company, one of the most powerful consulting firms on earth, that advised them on how to supercharge sales. Strategies included targeting high-prescribing doctors and even proposing incentives for pharmacies when overdoses happened. Yes, overdoses. When lawsuits hit, McKinsey paid hundreds of millions in settlements. No apology, no admission of guilt, no headlines. They simply moved on to the next client. Now rewind to 2008, the global financial crash. Millions lost jobs, homes, and futures. The public blamed banks. But who helped package toxic assets, advise rating agencies, and sell the illusion of safety? Consultants again. They designed the financial instruments. Then, when it all collapsed, they were rehired by governments to fix the crisis they helped create. And they didn't stop there. In energy, Enron became a symbol of fraud. But behind its fall stood another name, Arthur Andersen. The consultants and auditors who enabled the illusion of profitability. When Enron crumbled, so did Arthur Andersen, but not before shaping one of the most deceptive corporate narratives of our time. Consultants often advise governments too, but not always their own. They've helped authoritarian regimes burnish their image in the West, clean up reputations, buy sports teams, host global events. Behind every photo op and press release is often a Western consulting firm with a playbook for influence. Some of these same firms advise democratic governments on national security. The result? A tangled web of double allegiances, where profit and power come before principle. Even the military hasn't been immune. Billions have been spent on external consultants. So much so that some U.S. departments have begun canceling contracts, citing inflated costs and questionable value. The pattern is always the same. Crisis hits. Consultants arrive. They reshape the battlefield, define the strategy, steer the outcomes, and when scrutiny appears, they vanish into the background. Unnamed, untouched. They don't make the policies, but they influence them. They don't break the systems, but they exploit the cracks. Consulting firms aren't inherently evil, but their power lies in invisibility. No votes, no accountability, no transparency. Yet they help decide who gets what, where the money flows, and who takes the fall. And when history asks, who let this happen? Their names rarely come up, because they were never supposed to be in the picture. They were always meant to be just outside the frame. From Silicon Valley to Wall Street, consultants have played kingmaker for decades, engineering success, opening back doors, and quietly rigging the game. It starts with access. Consultants are the architects of influence. They know who owns what, who's looking to buy, and who's in trouble. They don't pitch ideas, they pitch entire empires. And the right whisper in the right boardroom can turn a struggling founder into the next tech icon. Take Jeff Bezos. Amazon's rise wasn't just fueled by innovation, it was optimized by McKinsey-style operational efficiency, legal structuring, and aggressive market mapping. These weren't strokes of genius. They were deliberate plays from a consultant's handbook. Then there's Elon Musk. SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink each positioned not just as businesses, but as global savior narratives. Who shaped that messaging? Who helped secure government contracts? Consultants did. They didn't just build pitch decks, they built personas. Even in Asia, conglomerates have leaned on Western consultants to become global forces. They didn't just want scale. They wanted status, prestige, entry into elite financial circles. Consultants provided that and charged by the hour. But here's the twist, consultants don't just make billionaires. They protect them. When scandals erupt, tax evasion, labor abuses, data leaks, consultants step in. Not to fix the problem, but to reshape the narrative. Crisis management, stakeholder spin, strategic deniability. While the media chases smoke, consultants are sealing off the fire, and the public never sees it. Because the billionaire story isn't meant to include the backstage crew. The official version says, self-made, hustle, garage to glory. The truth? It was meticulously mapped, optimized, streamlined, and sometimes quietly manipulated. Entire markets were disrupted not by innovation, but by prearranged monopolies, regulatory loopholes, and global supply chains sculpted in PowerPoint presentations. And when the dust settles, the consultants are gone. No equity stake, no public credit, just a massive invoice and the next client waiting. Sometimes they even play both sides. They'll help one billionaire scale the company, then help another billionaire buy it, then advise the regulators on how to oversee the industry. 3 paychecks. 0 accountability. This isn't strategy. It's silent empire building. Consultants are the hidden network behind the most powerful fortunes of our time. They don't own the empires, but they draw the maps. And when history looks back on this billionaire age, it might ask, how did this happen? The answer won't be found in Forbes. It'll be buried in decks, models, and midnight strategy calls. In corridors without cameras. In names you've never heard, controlling outcomes you thought were spontaneous. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not inventors. They are billionaire makers, and they prefer to stay invisible. NCH, there's often a backstory the public will never know. A competitor pushed out. A whistleblower silenced. A regulation bypassed with a technicality found in a 700-page legal document. The consultants know. They always know. But they'll never speak. Because they've signed the circle of silence. Sometimes that silence protects industries. Sometimes it protects individuals. And sometimes it protects crimes that have been rebranded as strategy. Ever wonder how financial frauds go undetected for years? How monopolies form despite antitrust laws? How companies rise overnight with mysterious funding and no public explanation? It's because everyone who could explain it isn't allowed to, and no one dares to break the circle. Because NDAs aren't just legal documents. They are tools of soft coercion. They isolate. They intimidate. They create a culture where truth is a liability. Even when a consultant leaves a firm, they carry the silence with them. Not just because of contracts, but because of consequence. Speaking out can burn every bridge, every future opportunity. So they stay quiet. And the silence grows. It becomes generational, institutional. A code passed down to new hires wrapped in onboarding packets and framed as professional ethics. But ethics and fear can look very similar from the outside. And here's the real conspiracy: sometimes the circle of silence doesn't just protect the client, it protects the consultant. Because they've seen too much, done too much, advised decisions that led to layoffs, environmental disasters, wars. Yes, wars. You think governments plan geopolitical strategy in isolation? Think again. Defense spending, surveillance rollouts, even post-war reconstruction, all shaped by consultants. And when those moves go wrong, the fallout is public. But the decision-making? Protected. The files are sealed. The slides are gone. The meetings never happened. And the people who were there? They've signed the silence. In a world that worships transparency, this is the hidden clergy of discretion. They know the real version of events, the one not found in headlines or history books. But you'll never hear it from them. Because what happens inside the circle stays there. And if you try to force it out, well, you'll learn that some secrets are protected not by paper, but by power. Look closer. In every global crisis, every economic shift, every war, bailout, and revolution, there are names you never hear, firms you never see, and rooms you'll never enter. These are the people who outlive governments, who sit across regimes, advising one administration after another. They don't change with elections, they guide elections. Not with votes, but with narratives. Behind every major political pivot, there's a deck, a pitch, a consulting blueprint that no one outside the circle ever sees. Consultants are embedded in the IMF, the World Bank, the Pentagon, the EU, and global corporate boardrooms. They advise on trade wars by day and climate strategies by night. They shape how countries respond to pandemics. They decide what counts as sustainable, what becomes too big to fail, and which industries survive the next regulation wave. You're told the world is shaped by leaders. But leaders take advice. And someone gets paid a lot of money to give it. So who really runs the world? Is it the politician giving the speech? Or the team who wrote it? The CEO on the magazine cover? Or the consultants who laid the groundwork years before? Consider this: the same consulting firms that helped governments design stimulus packages also advised the corporations that received the funds. Two sides of the same coin. One firm, zero accountability. And when scandals break, the whisperers vanish into the smoke. They reappear months later, new country, new nameplate, same playbook. You think you live in a free market, but the market is engineered. You think your government made a bold decision, but the memo was drafted 3 months earlier by people you'll never know. This isn't a conspiracy. It's a business model. And it's global. From Wall Street to Davos. From Delhi to Dubai. From Silicon Valley to Whitehall. The faces change. The logos change. The accents change. But the agenda? Efficiency. Profit. Control. Influence. Repeat. Consultants aren't the villains. Nor the heroes. They're the architects paid to solve problems, create leverage, and sometimes protect secrets. So ask yourself this as you scroll past headlines and break down the news of the day. Are you watching the main act? Or the distraction? Because the real power doesn't wear a crown or wave from balconies. The real power doesn't shout. It whispers. And it's still out there. Watching. Advising. Engineering the next big move. Stay curious. Stay skeptical. ByteShift.